So welcome to this legal stump to chump moment. It's my best friend, brother from another mother, and sometimes lover, maybe?
Yeah, that's fair.
So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about some of your legal questions, because I made a Facebook post that said, hey, give me some questions to ask Bryon. I got some questions for him. And so we're gonna kind of just go through those questions. We're right here. I wanna send a shout out to my dear friend Amy in Good Work. She's got her co-working space opening up here soon. And also my other dear friend Emily at the Freelance Conference in Austin. It's gonna be in Austin, September 7, 8, 9. Check those out. We'll put the links out at the end when we post this video. This video is also being recorded and it will be up on YouTube, and also little segments will show up too. So if you're on the live, thank you for joining as we figure this out, right?
Yeah, we stumped the chump.
All right, so introduction. So Bryon and I went to high school together, and we actually became much better friends, I guess, after high school. But I can tell you that in 2006 or so, my brother Ollie says, hey, Bryon's gonna stop by. And I thought, yeah, I know who he's talking about. I said, so how's Bryon doing? He said, Bryon's doing great. Then he tells me Bryon's now an attorney, and I was like, who's stopping by? I said, Bryon? It's like, but Bryon is an attorney? So I will tell you this thing that I know about Bryon is that he's really, really, really smart, and he's extremely good at hiding his intelligence. And so this young man here has become really a power in legal stuff. He does all our both family law stuff. I mean, the law for our family business. And anytime I have anything going on, I ask him what his thoughts are. And I've always learned that prevention and getting the legal advice from the beginning always works a lot better in your favor, and always is going to cost a lot less. So I'm going to get straight into one of the first questions that were asked today, which is what's the difference between a 501c3 and a social purpose corporation?
That's a great question. And that really dovetails into what's the difference between state law, entity law, which I consider a thing, and how the government taxes your thing, right? And a lot of times people conflate they confuse the two things. People will say, like, you should form an S corp. I mean, that's not something you can do. Think of it this way. You have a state law entity, a corporation, an LLC, something like that is a thing. It's like a shield, right? And you put your shield on and you go out into the battlefield of business. Well, depending on what your shield looks like, your government will tax it a certain way. So let's say if taxes were paintballs, the government would shoot a 501c3 with blue paintballs, everybody else gets red paintballs. So what's the fundamental difference between things called like a B Corp or a social purpose corporation or a social enterprise corporation? Well, generally speaking, and it varies by state, what these are, and they're worthless. They really are. What this is not that long ago, about 7 years ago, some startup ventures decided that they wanted to be able to do good things when they went public without being sued. Now, what I mean by that, I mean, if you run a public company, you're supposed to do stuff that makes money for the business, or your shareholders can sue you. So they demanded that states try to craft laws to say the directors not only have to make money, but they have to do it in a socially conscious way. They have to do something good for society and maybe make a little less money for having done that. And if they do, the shareholders can't sue you. Well, that always existed. If my bylaws said I expect my company to do good for the world and try to make money at the same time, I couldn't have sued you anyway, right? And here's where it gets really stupid. What if you're a small business? Abe, you have a bunch of small businesses. Do you do good in the community? Do you go speak at schools and help people? Do you have to have special permission from your company to do it? No, I mean, you just run your own show. It's your own small business, right? It's something for people to put under their pillow to feel like they accomplished something.
Yeah,
now,
but yeah, I was going to say, isn't it a requirement that you have to take the interest of your shareholder in mind, and so you always have to be maximizing profits?
If that's what your governing document said, yes. And the reason these are stupid is you could just make your governing documents be changed. If all of your shareholders said, we want you to have a social purpose, they would have an election to change the bylaws to say you should have a social purpose. And here's where it gets really goofy. That has nothing to do with tax law. Texas has a thing called a nonprofit corporation. If you form a nonprofit Texas corporation, it's literally called a nonprofit corporation. It is fully taxable.
By?
By the government by the Texas state government and the federal government.
And Texas state government, you're
For
referencing
sales,
franchise tax,
franchise tax, property tax, sales tax. So Texas will form a business that they call a nonprofit business and tax it.
So why are they doing that?
Because it's everything in the world. Remember, everything, every entity is taxable until you get tax exempt status. So a 501c3 means you are a tax exempt business. And for people out there in the universe watching this, don't think of nonprofit or not-for-profit. Think of tax exempt entity or not tax exempt entity. A 501c3 is some entity created, and it doesn't matter if it's an LLC corporation, it doesn't matter what it is, that told the government, the IRS, we are created for a tax-exempt benefit to the world purpose. We're here to help kids not be to keep kids from starving. We're here to help get the people through college. We're here to help disabled vets. Our only purpose is to help other people or the world be a better thing. For that, you get to be tax-exempt. But that doesn't mean not money. The Red Cross is tax-exempt, right? How much money do you think the CEO of the Red Cross gets every year?
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
About $13 million in salary.
Right.
So that's the difference. A social enterprise is this made-up, stupid law that says you can do good with your company.
So here's a follow-up question.
Tax-exempt says you don't pay any taxes if your company only does good things.
Right, and maybe there's a way we can come up with a little graphic to go with this, because I know this stuff is really confusing when you first hear about this. When you're really first hearing about tax, corporate tax, state tax, sales tax, because it just seems really, really confusing. And then the way you're structuring your business, whether you're an LLC or not. So there's a question here, which is, can LLCs get a tax break for in-kind membership and services for a 501c?
So I think what that's trying to ask is, if an LLC does a service for a not-for-profit entity, can it deduct that? Well, let me back up, and what you're asking there at a fundamental level is, what charitable things can businesses deduct? Real easy answer. The only business that can ever make a deduction for charitable activities is a C Corp, which none of you are going to be. You don't want to be a C Corp. And C Corps can only deduct up to 10% of their income. So if you are a sole proprietor, an S Corp, or a partnership for tax purposes, you don't deduct any charitable contributions. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying you can't take that deduction. For instance, Walmart. Walmart gives a lot of money to charity. They don't do it because they get a tax benefit, because they're not getting a tax benefit. Why do they do it?
For the community, for sales, marketing?
Yeah, exactly, for sales and marketing, right? They do it because Walmart is kind of thought as a bad guy, right? They don't treat their employees the way the world wants their employees treated, but they turn around and say, look at all the good we do into the community. So yeah, to answer that live question, you can't get a tax deduction for having done something for a 501c3. So like if MES puts on a lab for, let's say low-income children for no money, she can't deduct what that would have cost for tax purposes.
But can't you deduct them via K-1 on the personal taxes?
Generally, no. So that gets into how you're taxed. The partnership couldn't do it, so the partnership then cannot flow it through to you as an individual. So to answer this person's question on Facebook and everybody out there that's wondering, if you want to do good, you've got to do it on your own, unrelated to your business. If you do it through your business, that's considered just a sales marketing activity and it's not deductible.
That's awesome. So I want to take a second and we're going to talk about S Corp and LLC. And I'll start off by actually the question, can a freelancer have an LLC? This was something that was brought up the other day when I was having a lunch with Emily and Amy, and I think that's really important. And this is like such a really fundamental entity discussion. Then if you can address that one, because that'll, I'm sure, trickle into some of the other stuff.
Sure. Shield.
Can do a stick figure? Which one I should?
So I'm trying to do a little graphic here to try to help people. It's going to be really ugly, but hopefully it gets the points across. So here's the thing. No matter what you are, if you're a solopreneur, right? If you're just one person shop and you're running services, if you're doing any type of business at all, and your business is going to make you more than, say, $1,000, or you have more than $1,000 of assets, you need to have an LLC. Anyone can have an LLC, and anyone should have an LLC, and this is why. We have two things. Let me see if this comes through on the camera. We have you, how you are taxed, and how you can be sued, what your shield is. So let's say you're a solopreneur and you're like, hey, I just mow yards for a living, right? And it's just me and my lawnmower. Why should I do this whole thing of having an LLC? Well, real easy. I'm going to tell you, what if you run over somebody's foot while you're mowing their yard? And you're going to say, well, I don't know what happens. Well, you're going to lose, and let's say you do $1 million of real damage to this person. So I'm going to take your lawnmower. What else you got? You got a bank account? I'm taking that bank account. You got a retirement account? I'm taking that retirement account. You got a car? I got a car. You got stuff in your house? I have the stuff in your house. The only thing I can't take from you is I can't take your house while you live in it. But guess what happens when you try to sell that house? I get it. And then guess what happens when you try to get an apartment or buy a car and they run your credit? They say, no, you owe Bryon before you can pay me, so I'm not going to loan you for that car or the house. So basically, you ruin your life, right? You carry this with you for, say, 15 years, and then you file bankruptcy. But then it's another 7 years before you can get credit anyway. And that's because you ran over somebody's foot. And that can happen, right? I mean, the only day you're guaranteed to get through without something bad happening was yesterday.
Right. So hold on, but let's take a step back. A lot of the people that are probably will end up watching this video are going to be startups.
That's right.
Right. So a seasoned entrepreneur will know some of these things. But let's say on the startup world, someone wanting to get started, and they're like, well, there's a lot of costs associated with setting up an LLC, right? So I'm just going to roll through I'm going to roll with the sole proprietorship for a while, just get going, and then I can convert to an LLC. How do you deal with that? Because that is a real thing, right? Trying to get people going and getting started.
You're bootstrapping it, right?
Right.
You're running by the skin of your teeth, and if you've left your day gig and this is all you got, I mean, you're hustling with everything you got. Here's what I tell you. If you can't put together, let's say $1,000 is the magic number to turn the LLC on and get it all squared away perfectly. If you don't have that, you're not ready to go into business yet. And because a lot of people say, well, it's going to take me 6 months before I even have to deal with customers. And I ask them this, I say, what are you doing in that 6 months? Well, I'm buying the raw materials to make my thing. I'm getting my space ready. I'm doing all my back-end processes before I'm ready to go to market. So you're signing a contract with the guy you buy materials from. You're signing a lease with this guy that owns the shop. You're hiring some people to, let's say, paint the walls or put things together. You're doing things that could get you sued. I'm here to tell you right now, if you're out there in TV land watching this, wait until you can form the LLC. That should be day 0. When you get the idea to start a business, form the LLC. Because you know how much it costs to keep the LLC around every year?
It's like $300.
0. There's no fee after that. It's a one-time cost. All you have to do is file a sheet of paperwork saying I'm still alive every year. And you can have it forever. In fact, here's a little trick. I create LLCs and keep them on the shelf and sell them at a premium to say, hey, Abe, you started business in 2017, but I'm going to sell you this LLC from 2013. So you can say my company was established in 2013. Now, you're not saying you were in business in then, but you really can say my company was established in 2013. So if I'm looking at businesses online and I see one guy started in 2017, one guy's been around for at least 4 years, who am I going to go talk to? That's the easy answer, guys. You only want to lose the money you want to lose as an entrepreneur, right? You just want to lose what you're willing to lose. If you do not have an LLC, you're going to lose everything you have. If you have an LLC, you will only lose what you want to lose.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into some other topics in the future, but I can tell you that what I've learned, I said it at the beginning, is that if you don't set up your corporate structure right, you don't set up your tax thing right, there's a few different things that can happen. One of them is, let's say your business just goes out. You have to close the doors. There's a lot of cleanup work involved, but it's not as painful as your business is successful and you have the wrong legal entity set up for you. And then that is just painful. I mean, that gets really, really hard because all the tax implications can be monstrous. 6-7 figure tax bills all of a sudden show up when you get to a position where you need to convert and fix the problem. And it's brutal. So if you're buying a house and you don't know, if you're buying multiple houses, you want to get separate LLCs for those, and that's a whole different discussion, which we can get into, which is asset protection and siloing different parts of your business. Yeah. Is that a good way? Major assets?
And let me just piggyback. The short answer to that, can a freelancer be an LLC? A freelancer should be an LLC. If you're out there with any type of hustle, you need to have an LLC protecting you. You need to have a shield before you go into the battle.
All right, so next question is there so this is an estate planning question. So is there a clause, let me step back for a second and say, if you don't have a will set up already for yourself, please get one. I tell people all the time, you don't have a Google Calendar, get into major accident and die, or get into major accident and be in a coma for 3 months. So please get your will set up. That's going to be so beneficial for your family, your kids, your wife, anything like that.
Yeah, don't learn that the hard way. Too many times people come to me saying, Bryon, help me out. And I say, what's up? dad died, dad left everything to me, told me to take care of everything, and I don't even know how to do it, right? Everybody just names their oldest child to take care of these things. Two things. That child has never done legal work. They don't know how to deal with it. Number two, I want to be grieving when I lose my parents. I don't want to be worried about how to close out the bank accounts and give it to everybody who it's owed to. So please have those affairs in order so that when you die, your estate goes into autopilot so your family can mourn and heal.
And I'm probably going to bring that up almost on every one of these things. This is just a really important issue. So is there a clause that can be added to a will stating that if a named beneficiary contests the will, then they get nothing? So this is from my friend Sarah Simic in Washington. Hi, thank you for your question.
All right, West Coast. Sarah, absolutely there is. The Latin term for it is in terrorem. So the word terror with an em at the end of it. What they're usually called is a no contest clause. And there's 4 ways that they work. Number one, a state can say, we don't let you do that, because every estate planning matter is dealt with your individual state that you live in. So they can say, we don't allow those at all. Or they can say, we allow them, whatever they say is whatever they say. Or most often what happens is the state will say, we allow you to have those, but if the person challenges it and loses, then it takes effect. Or you can do like Texas, where it says if a person challenges the will and loses, it still doesn't take effect unless you can prove that they had a bogus challenge. And why do they do that, right? What they want to do is make sure that the hero, let's say there's a legitimate problem with the will, but you're not sure you're going to win. Like there's 3 kids and all 3 kids say there's something wrong with dad's will. So one of us has to go on to the court and say, we think something's wrong, but we are not sure if our understanding is right. Well, what if that guy in good faith trying to help his brother says, I'll be the guy that goes to court, and they end up losing when they try to interpret the will, not trying to be shady, not trying to just be jerks and slow up the system. You don't want that guy to get burned for being the hero. So the way these clauses usually work, and they're written this way in the will, and the law will be enforced this way, is if someone written into the will challenges the will, and they lose, and they didn't have a good reason to challenge, they just were, what happened? They were upset that they didn't get as much as they wanted to get, yeah, then that person gets nothing. So yes, you can do that. It's called a no contest clause or an in terrorem clause. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think when people setting up the will, it's a really interesting time where you have to go through and think through scenarios.
Oh yeah.
Right. So who would be the guardian of your kids, and what if those people are on a vacation with you and then something happens?
Yeah, I mean,
so there's all these things like you are no longer there. Yeah, so good question.
We've had that, and let me just piggyback on that. We've had that discussion, Abe, when I was doing his estate plan. I'm going to give you a pro tip of advice that I give people. Everybody wants to pick either oldest child to take care of things, or their brother and sister, or their mom and dad. I want you to, when you do your estate plan, to pick 4 or 5 people in descending order of who's going to be on the same plane going on vacation with you, right? So yeah, it can be mom first, but then maybe get down to person 2 or 3, make it a cousin that you're close with, but doesn't travel with you all the time. And at the end of the day, pick a bank or a trust company, because if Bank of America is probably going to outlive you. And at the end of the day, I would rather pay Bank of America to know they're doing it right than have the court throw a dart at a dartboard and say, who gets to take care of the stuff today? Johnny, who made a big donation to my campaign as a judge, right? So don't pick close people to you, because what you don't want to have happen is everybody die on the same plane crash and then the court picks their person.
That's right. All right. So next question, which is, what is the best, so it's my friend Wajid, what is the best way to dispute your property taxes?
Wajid, wonderful. That's a poignant question.
And I think you got like 12 days left?
Yeah. You've got
in Tarrant County at least?
In Tarrant County, you've got to the end of this month. So this is going to be a broad generalization, but here's what you want to do. Number one, I recommend going to find a buyer's agent, real estate agent, and ask for what's called a CMA. And these are, everybody in the country will give you this. It's called a comparative market analysis. And that's where the software that the realtor has will run houses that are similar to yours that have sold within the last 90, 160, 120 days and show you what they sold for. So then you take those comparables and you try to find the ones that are lower than what the county is assessing your house at, and go to the county and say, look, here's homes that have actually sold. So that's the real value, not what you want to call the value, and they're worth less than you say my house is. So my house should be X amount less. Now, the flip side of that is a lot of times you'll run that number and you'll find that homes are selling for more than what they've assessed your value at. But that's the way you've got to do it. You've got to prove to them with real sales information that houses like yours in your area aren't worth what they're trying to tax you at.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing. What I do is there's this company out of Houston. They're called O'Connor and Associates, and it's really easy to get to their website. It's just O'Connor, CONNOR.com. And what you could do with them is they'll actually go represent you and dispute the property taxes, and you don't have to pay them unless they win. And whatever the amount of savings that they get, you end up giving them 50% of it. So for most of the time, I think that makes sense because that saves you the trip down there. The amount of money that you will end up having to pay out or I guess losing in the dispute becomes negligible. So if they're able to talk 20% or $20,000 off your house price, I don't know what the number of savings would be, but they might end up making $400. And you know,
it's
for
money,
me,
it's money you were going to pay to the state anyway.
Yeah,
so you might as well save half of it.
And God knows if you would have been able to get it yourself. So
and it's kind of like a traffic ticket. They can't do anything you can't do, but they'll be more obnoxious with the county than you will be. So if they send a letter saying, I'm coming to talk to you about this and it's going to take 4 hours, and you send a letter saying, I'd like to talk to you about it, they're going to play ball with them because they don't have time to deal with them coming in every single day, wasting their whole day like they know they can.
Right.
So that's a great alternative, especially because you're not putting any cash up front.
That's right. So another question, this is an interesting one, and this is one that so many, especially smaller businesses run into. How about not running afoul of employee/independent contractor status? So this is something that if you followed anything on Uber, this is an issue that has come up with Uber in a lot of the states. And so I would back up first and, really what is the difference?
Yeah, this is something, and let's be clear, this is something I give an 1.5 hour long presentation on, and that's just scratching the surface. This is a really
start it here and then
But let's do the 10,000 foot view, and,
right.
and personally, I think this is what kills Uber. This will break Uber's back. So the difference between an independent contractor and employee is what's called the right to control. Now that's a really vague term, right? So what does that really mean? It means, do you have the right to control the means of what they're doing, how they're doing it, or just the ends? And the easiest way I can explain that is this. If I hire you to mow my yard, Abe, and I'd say, I'm going to pay you
oh my God.
$50.
Is that a Mexican joke?
Well, I mean, only half. I'm going to pay you $50.
You couldn't have hired me to do the engineering design for you or consulting. It had to be mowing the fucking yard.
I mean, if I didn't know you, if I just see you, I'm not going to assume engineering. Okay. Abe, I hire you to do some electrical engineering work on a schematic for my new home.
Thank you.
And I know it's going to be terrible.
It's true.
So
I can do that.
And I tell you, I'm going to pay you $500 for this for engineering the schematic of the house. And I just say, whenever it's done, it's done.
Okay.
You're an independent contractor, right? Now, what's the difference of all I controlled was that you gave me a schematic and I was happy with it.
Right.
Now, let's change that up to, Abe, I want you to do the schematic, but I want you to do it between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. I want you to do it in the Mess Labs facility. I want you to use this type of design software on your computer, and I want the files to look like this, this, and this. Well, now I'm telling you how to be an engineer, right?
But isn't that also a requirement document where you're saying, this is the way I want the product to come back?
I'm not the output. I'm telling you where to do it and when to do it. And so the easiest way is, let's back up and think of it in the way of the lawn care guy. I want you to use my lawnmower. I want you to start on the east side of my house and then mow to the west. And I want you to start it at 8:30 and be done by 11. Well, now I'm telling you kind of how to do it. Because I certainly told you to use my equipment, and I told you where to start and where to finish. Versus just telling you, I want it mowed at 3 inches and just do it sometime on Saturday. Now, unfortunately, John, this is a case-by-case question. There's no bright line answer other than make sure you don't control how they do it, only what they do. And now I think you have a follow-up here. What about if you pay them by the hour? There are 20 tests.
Well, let me just answer it. It goes, here's a specific question.
Oh, okay.
If you're going, from John also, John Blamowitz, which is my commercial real estate broker, good man. If you're going to pay an independent contractor for hourly work, how do you ensure you're not going to need to treat them as a W-2 employee? So the W-2 employee meaning they get that at the end of the year.
You're a full employee, right? And you have all the responsibilities that come with hiring a full employee. Well, let me answer that directly and then back up to how you get to the direct answer. You have a very good independent contractor agreement, and I don't mean something you got off Google. Trust me. If you have that,
how about LegalZoom?
You're going to be no.
How about NOLA?
How about you hire an attorney to custom draft it? The IRS, the Department of Labor, and every state Revenue Board and Labor Board require two things: documentary control and operational control. Documentary control says you have paperwork that says the exact right thing, which means it's specific to your case. Which, how are you going to get specifics from NOLO and LegalZoom and everything when they don't practice law? They're not allowed to practice law. And in fact, when you sign your credit card in there, they say, hey, you should print this out and take it to a lawyer before you pay us, because this isn't legal advice. We're not lawyers. But here's the problem. You have to have that and operational control. So a lot of my clients do this. They say, Bryon, here's my facts. Make me an agreement that'll work. And I say, okay, well, we got to pull the reins back. You're asking for too much. You're going to make that person an employee. I pull the reins back, and I give them an agreement that if they follow the agreement, it's going to be an independent contractor. What do they do in the real world? They push a little farther, and they push a little farther, and they exceed what the agreement says. So to answer your question, John, you've got to make sure with your attorney that what you're doing with this person is not crossing the line of controlling them. Now, that little hang-up you're going to have with hourly pay is the state of Texas thinks if you pay somebody by the hour, no matter what, they should be an employee. But we can fight that easily, because if I don't charge you a flat rate as a lawyer, how do I bill you? Hourly rate. I bill you 1/10 of every hour. Well, you're paying me isn't on an hourly rate. That doesn't make me an employee, does it?
Right.
We can fight it. You just need to talk to competent counsel one-on-one. But remember, the idea is don't control how they do it, control what they do. So if I've got a fast food franchise, I'm controlling what the guy behind the cash register does and when he does it. I tell him how to use my register. But the guy who manages the restaurant, I might just tell him, I want it to run smoothly.
Okay, awesome. So next question. This is kind of an accounting tax question.
Uh-oh.
All right, which is, if you run a business from your home and you have food delivered for lunch while you work, is it deductible on your taxes? The same for going out, if it's to discuss products, sales, so forth. What differs in deductions when having a home business versus a typical storefront? So this is from Heaven Lillis. She is the cheesecake lady that is making those delicious cheesecakes that
they are great.
Added at least 5 pounds to my figure. So do you get the question?
Yes. So let me answer that in two parts. The first part was, if you order food to the house while you're working, is it deductible? Well, let's back up even more. There's two types of deductions for a business. Assume you have a business, not a hobby. If you have a real business, food is considered meals and entertainment, and there's two ways it's deductible. If you bought the food for the benefit of your employees and the convenience of you as the employer, not for yourself. And what that looks like is, I run a factory, production's ramped up so much that I've decided to tell my guys to work through lunch, but I'm going to provide pizza for them and just feed them so they can keep working. That is 100% deductible. All other business-related food, so when you ordered food at the house while you were working, or if you ate lunch out on a sales call, is deducted 50%. Now, I don't agree with that rule. It's just a dumb tax rule that, for whatever reason, Congress said your food should, and meals and entertainment have to be a 50% deduction. I don't agree with it, but that's what it is. Now, the second part of your question was, what are the differences in deductions for a home-based business versus a business that's got office space? There's only one difference. If you have a home-based office, every time you leave your house in the car, every single business mile is deductible because home base is at your house. If you have an office that you regularly go to, the drive from home to the office is not deductible business mileage. It's called a commute. But the drive from the office to anywhere else and back to the office, that is business mileage that you can deduct. That's the only difference. As long as you have a business, you don't deduct the mileage between home and the place of business. If you work out of the house, you deduct every mile out of the driveway.
So in the case Heaven is asking here, I leave the house and we go to a restaurant, right? Since they're working from home, isn't it the drive to the restaurant and back that's deductible?
That's correct. So if you went to a business dinner and you work out of the house, that whole round trip is deductible. So if it's 10 miles there and 10 miles back, you deduct 20 miles.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that's a really important question. People mess that up all the time.
And then 1/2 of the dinner.
Right, and people mess that up all the time, and I think it's important to understand that 100% deduction, which is the convenience of the employer, because that really, you could do some things around the office to make that happen, and you do get that 100% deduction.
And let's be clear, when I said that's for the benefit of the employees, if you have an S-Corp and you're the only employee, you don't get it. You've got to have other people on your payroll. You can take part two. So if I buy pizza for the factory workers and I also eat pizza, I didn't ruin the deduction, but it's got to be for the people that work for me providing it for them.
So how about in the specific case where there's 2 people or there's 3 people in this LLC?
Well,
and then food is delivered so that they can continue to working.
Are they 3 owners, or is it 1 owner with 2 employees?
3 owners.
It's just 50% in that case.
But it is deductible.
But it is deductible. It's always deductible if it has a business purpose. It's only 50% deductible.
All right, that's awesome. And what that means by deductible, it means it comes off the income that you're reporting, right?
That's right. And if you report no income, then it becomes a loss against other income that you're gaining from somewhere else. Like, let's say you're a solopreneur at night and you have a day job. You could, if you were incurring losses where you get started up, then you would be reducing your taxes from your day job.
Right. So next question is, if you so have, oh my God, it's from my barber.
We can answer that one. That one has a lot going on.
Yeah, so this is my barber, Puga. She asked this ridiculous question, which if you so happen to shave someone's eyebrow entirely off with blatant intention. So I think it's important that she probably should not have asked that, like included that in the question, but she's asking for a friend anyway. So what's Obviously. The worst that can happen, right? Okay, they don't pay me. They might yell and get mad, but can they sue me? So,
well, first of all, general rule, anyone can sue for anything. It's can they win? In this case, where you purposely shaved off somebody's eyebrow, you did probably one of 2 intentional torts. And a tort is something you can sue for. It's basically when you injure someone, that's a tort. So if it's not a crime, but you somehow hurt somebody financially or physically, that's a tort. And you sue for that. Crimes, you go get the police for. So tort 1 could be battery. That's an intentional, unwanted touch of someone else. So if you intentionally shave the guy's eyebrow off and he didn't ask for it, that's battery. You can be sued for what's called nominal damages, meaning even if you didn't cost him any money, he could sue you for, let's say, $100 to teach you a lesson to not do it again.
And is that a small claims court thing?
That could be a small claims court, or you could take that to regular. So small claims, it depends on if you're owed money. It depends on the rules of your small claims court. This one, you'd probably take them to real court. But here's what would happen. You would lose because you intentionally shaved off that eyebrow without permission, but then they'd have to prove what their damages are. How much money did you cost them? I don't know, maybe $100. So if you get sued, they're only suing you for what you cost them out of pocket. So now let's change that up. We went to high school with a guy who's a very famous actor. Let's say he has a contract for $100,000 a year that says, if your eyebrows are ever missing, we can break your contract and stop paying you. Well, you would owe that guy $100,000 for because he can prove you cost me $100,000. So yeah, in that case, you could be sued and you could lose.
I need to make sure that's in my contract.
But I don't know how much you could ever have to pay over. Now, there's another thing called intentional infliction of emotional distress, where you do something so crazy that they can sue you for the emotional distress it caused. But
I'm going to sue Mess for that.
But if another tort happens, intentional infliction of emotional distress gets absorbed in that. So you could say, so if there was intentional infliction of emotional distress and battery because you shaved off the eyebrow, battery wins. So the other one goes away.
So with intentional infliction
of emotional distress is like a catch-all. If you did something stupid and we can't sue you for some other reason, then the catch-all is intentional infliction of emotional distress. But in this case, you lucked out because you did something else. So you got rid of the catch-all.
That's awesome.
Hope that helps.
It does help, and I'm definitely wanting to sue.
Puga, if that happens and you get sued and it's under $100, I will pay that $100. If you do it to him, I will pay $500.
I'll pay $1,000.
$1,500 total, Puga. You know what to do.
We're at $1,500.
And Mess will throw in cotton candy.
$1,500? Do I get the $1,500?
Yeah, but you got to go James Whip style with no eyebrows.
This might be something we do.
To be fair, though, he'd grow them back in a day. I mean, look at the guy.
I know.
He's so swarthy. He had to shave it just to come in today.
This is like since like 9 this morning.
This is a 5 o'clock shadow of his eyebrows shaved.
Oh, this is not even fair. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. I want to file so many of these lawsuits against you and Maz right now.
It's got to be.
I'm already stressed out about it.
It's got to be something crazy, but yeah. And this is when you see people say,
if you get to $10,000 pool, I think I'll let you shave my eyebrows off for charity. And
everyone in TV land, we can set that up. We can do a shave Abe's eyebrows to help the kids. We can find, we're in Dallas right now. Let's find a low-income school and try to put together a pot right now to provide.
And I have a follow-up question.
Let's provide art and music supplies to a low-income school in Dallas for the kids to have art and music supplies, and we'll shave his eyebrows.
I have a great question, though.
I'm a big proponent of art in schools.
How do I form a charity?
How do you form a charity?
Yeah.
Well, Abe, you're the most selfish person I know, so
We got
the 10,000-foot view answer, that's a real easy question to answer. You form a legal entity. I recommend an LLC. Now, why do I say that? Because if for whatever reason the IRS doesn't give you tax-exempt status, you really want to be an LLC. After that, you go through the process of filling out the applications with the IRS to get tax-exempt status. And then once you get that, every state will have to recognize that and give you tax-exempt status as well. I believe that form, don't let me lie to you, I'm sorry guys, you've stumped the chump. I'm going to have to Google what the form is.
Your eyebrow comes off when we win. That's really starting to look depressing.
It deflated, just like Mrs. Dreams.
It's like Mrs. Dreams.
1023, Form 1023 is the form you will file. Do be aware, though, you have to pay somewhere between $400 and $800 to the IRS for them to review it. And if they don't accept your status, they don't return the money. So here's a quick pro tip. The past 3 or 4 years, this has been my experience. The first time you file it, they keep your check and say thanks for playing because they're trying to stop people from creating political networks or political not tax-exempt entities. The second time, they'll give it a good look over and they may accept it. If by the third time they don't accept it, they just don't like what you're selling. But don't be surprised if they reject it without even really looking at it the first time. They're just doing that to try to stop people from flooding the system.
Awesome.
Thank you for the coffee.
Hey, Mess, you want to ask your question that you posted on my page live since you're here?
No, I'm all right.
She's good? Mm-hmm. All right.
Ness doesn't want to participate.
She's in a bad mood today.
She is.
Because of her dreams being deflated.
The bubble dreams.
Her bubble dreams have been deflated.
Her hoop dreams deflated faster than a true fiend's weight.
I have no other follow-up questions right now. Does anybody have a question for Bryon?
Was there anything else left on there?
I think we got it all. I think we did. We got great questions. This is a great first time doing this.
Well, I think you should clarify something we talked about off camera, which was I kept saying, you're saying social enterprise is stupid, and I knew he didn't mean that.
That's right. Thanks for bringing that up, Mess. So here's what I meant to say. Social enterprise is not a legal term. It means what you want it to mean. You're doing a business that has a good purpose behind it or is doing good things. No, it's not just like a cold, purely motivated by money business, right? But that's different than what's called like a B Corp status or a social enterprise corporation or a social purpose corporation. Those 3 types of entities are real state law things, and they have special rules behind them. Those rules will trip you up because, number one, if you're in there in TV land, you probably didn't even know they existed. Number two, if you want to get tax-exempt status and you pick one of those special entities, they will give you extra scrutiny to make sure you're doing everything those rules make you do. So here's what I'm saying. Don't get twisted up with that. Form a regular LLC.
I speak at a third grade level, so let me try. I think what you're saying is that there's nothing wrong with social enterprise or whatever, but don't bring those terms over when it comes down to creation of the entity structure.
That's right. Don't cross it over. So Mess Labs is a social enterprise. It is not structured as a social purpose corporation. Put it that way. So form your business the way the billionaires form their businesses. Run it the way you want to run it. That's the difference. Don't do anything that Mark Cuban didn't do in how he structures things, but run it with the purpose and for the benefit of what you want to do it. And let's be clear here. Part of what I'm saying there is like, look, Mark Cuban wasn't necessarily the nicest guy before he made the money to give the money to charities. But definitely structure your business the right way legally. Run it to benefit who you want to benefit. So please, by all means, I am not advocating not being a social enterprise. We need more constructive community-based things. We need to pull people out of bad areas and give people opportunities they wouldn't otherwise get. But don't be fooled into going to these exotic terms for how you structure your business.
So I get this comment here, and I was really excited. See, there's a message here, so I thought, hey, let me read. Maybe you have a new question to ask you. And it says, I like how you match your shirt with others, Abe. So thank you.
Well, we avoided not doing plaid together, but we couldn't help not doing
This is 2 days in a row. Yesterday's was ridiculous. I've been taking some shit for that one. So I have no other follow-up questions myself, and I think this was a good round one. We stumped you once.
Yeah, that's right. Well done.
We got you cotton candy. you got an opportunity to meet Mess, which is not something you're going to brag about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I do want
Can't all be
to.
winners.
I do want to definitely share this. So this is the flyer we just came out with for Mess Labs. This is our 2017 summer camp list. They're available on messlabs.com. Summer camps start here on June the 5th, starting with Scratch on the web. And it goes on from there, Chemistry Week, STEM Week, and so forth. So Mess Labs is a science lab, Tinker Space, and Code Studio. So kids from about 4 or 5, but really 6 to 12 years old. And if they're just over 12, Mess is doing a Lab Rats program. So it's like an intern program for those individuals, those youngsters that are really interested. Anything you want to add to that, Mess?
No, just if anybody wants to keep our flyers in their business or school, that'd be great.
Right, that's right. So if you want any of these flyers, let me know. We can send them out to you. Right now, we're located in at the Grove in the West End.
Yes.
And we'll be opening another location here soon. So stay tuned for that. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. I think you need to give me a kiss on the cheek. Ah! That was about to happen.